Hey everybody out there, my name is Dragnix and this is Bezier. A Bezier is a parametric curve frequently used in computer graphics and related fields. But in this case, we're talking about a shoot 'em up. The game launches on Steam today for $9.99. I don't know if there will be a launch discount available, but the game is also available via itch.io as well as Philip Bach, the developer's personal site. Will Bezier do enough in the gameplay department to separate it from other shoot-em-ups and twin-stick shooters? That's what I'm here to answer, but before I begin, this key was obtained from the developer for the purposes of review. That won't change my opinion of the game in the end, but you should know that because of FTC guidelines, as well as the whole morals thing, you know? Now the game has a couple of modes behind it, but let's start with the normal mode. In normal mode, you'll notice on the top right of the screen there's something called Judgment. There are shields that you have to take down before that timer goes out. If the timer goes out, guess what? You're sorta dead. To do that, you'll have to avoid traps and other enemies in order to stay alive. There are no traditional bullets that are thrown at you this game, but there's so much happening on screen that doesn't really matter. You'll run into something sooner rather than later. Now you have a primary weapon in your laser barrage, and this is a little bit different from other games in the genre in terms of its implementation. Now, if you're using a controller, you aim with the right control stick and you fire in that direction that you're pointing. But you'll also notice that you fire in the back direction of your ship as well. And off the bat, I like this subtle change. The fact is that most enemies in this game will only damage you if they touch you, and so crowd control mechanics are rather important in this game. The fact that you're able to fire behind you means that you can be more aggressive, but you have to be a little bit conservative when you're going into huge enemies that are able to take a lot of damage. Those back bullets are not going to save you in that case. But those smaller enemies, yeah, they'll be easily taken out. There's one other way to fire your primary weapon, and that's through the auto fire feature. Hitting the auto fire button, your ship will aim to the closest enemy and take it out, and then move on to the next one. It's sort of like an aimbot. But the aimbot does come with a catch, an overheat mechanic. The small bar highlighted here shows you what your weapon's heat is at, and if it hits max, guess what? You can't fire. And I like the feature for the most part. The fact of the matter is you're going to be surrounded at some point in this game, and you won't be able to keep up. This auto aim helps you get through that. Now there's some good game design here with the overheat mechanic being tied to it, however I do feel that the cooldown period needs to be extended. I find it recovering rather quickly, and it doesn't necessarily punish the over-reliance of it. However, a little tweak and I think you've got a perfect mechanic for this game. The other way that you can take out enemies is via your secondary weapons that you collect via destroyed shields. Now these weapons have a good variety to them. Some of them are very standard, like the missiles that home in on people, but some of them are not standard, like the Guardian, which you swing around your ship and hope to hit the enemies with like a mace. There's good variety in the secondary weapons here, and it's helped by the cooldown period. If you were able to spam the 3 shots that you have with your secondary weapon rather quickly, it would be a little bit overpowered considering that you can just go to another shield and get another power up. But the cooldown makes it so that you can't just charge right into battle and you actually have to think about when you need to use it. Now you have 2 meters that you have to worry about here, your ouch meter and your oomph meter. The ouch, of course, is your health bar, but the oomph is a little combination of a couple mechanics. It's your bonus multiplier, but it's also a multiplier for the rate of the cooldown of your auto aim, so you do have a combination there. Oomph drains over time, so you'll have to keep on killing enemies and collecting those blue orbs that come out of them so that you can keep the oomph up, hence the term oomph. Now, one of the unique aspects of this game is its radar system being built into the actual playing field. You'll notice that circle in the middle of the screen. It will tell you the information you need in order to find the shields and health bars, but it's also in the middle of the map along with you firing your weapon. So there's a lot of information right there. However, it somehow works in this case. See, a lot of games that have that sort of chaotic feel where there's too much information on screen, they do that because they don't know exactly where to put it. But it seems like Philip embraced the fact that the information was in the action there, and you actually had to decipher it or get rid of the enemies so that you could see it. Now, if you look closely, you can still see that information that you need, but I like the fact that he had a little bit of a twist on the normal formula here. It's complemented by some good sound cues. When the game says shield up, then you know to look at the middle of the screen and say, okay, I needed to go that way in order to take down that shield. Very good design elements here. I do wonder if it went one step too far with the red dots on the screen. The fact of the matter is that your ship doesn't move that fast, so that you have to actually react to enemy locations on the screen. You're able to deal with them at the speed that you are at, along with the lasers that you've got. So I don't necessarily see the information providing a great benefit for the user. The game also has an upgrade system that has significant upgrades in terms of increased critical attack, helping in terms of the damage and range on your blaster, and so you get these by playing through the game, and you'll be able to use them in pretty much every mode at that point. Now, those who have watched the channel before have heard me talk about an oomph factor before, which is sort of appropriate considering the fact that there's an oomph meter in this game. A game needs something unique, something to make it stand out, and lo and behold, Bezier has a lot of things that make it have its own style, but feel familiar in the genre. Now, a lot of shoot-'em-up boss enemies have those sort of weak spots that you have to exploit, and the game has it to a certain extent here. However, it's a little bit different, and it changes it up on you to make it feel fresh. For example, in this scenario, I have to actually fire within the colored boundary of what the core of the shield looks like at that point, and it changes color over time, so I have to move appropriately. But then I may run into a situation where I'm looking at the color of the core here and wondering why I'm not able to fire or do damage on it. Then I realize the line color here is a little bit different from everything else, it's the only one highlighted, and therefore I need to fire on that specific node. It forces you to think about exactly how to go about destroying these objects, and I really appreciate that it kept on changing it up on me. It felt fresh, it felt new after every level. Could that feeling run out eventually? I suppose, but after the first 10, 15, 20 levels, it still was throwing things at me, and then it would once in a while bring back an older mechanic for me to actually remember exactly what was going on. Again, really good design here, and a good mix-up of all these different objects. The game is also inspired in other ways, like status effects. For example, if my ship's confused and I'm trying to fire to the right, I'll actually fire to the left. But if I'm able to recognize that rather quickly, if I start aiming left, I'll aim right like I want to. This is the kind of game design that I love. One small alteration that keeps the core of the game, aka shoot enemies, they die the same, but alters it in a way so that the player actually has to react on the fly to it, but they know what they're getting into. Confusion, mute, they all are very clear on what they do right away. These game design elements are complemented by the presentation in question. Getting hurt and seeing that word ouch with the amount of health that comes up on screen, that does work in terms of the game. You're able to see it within the action, however you're able to focus on the enemies in question. Is the aesthetic simple? Sure. The game's not going to win any awards for graphical fidelity, but the thing is, it complements the gameplay well, and that's why it works. I'm able to see everything on screen, and even when things get chaotic and you have this sort of mesh of neon colors all over the place, but I'm able to still process the information I need in order to know what enemy to take on next. And the fact is, I have my auto-aim still. And that's the biggest point I want to make. The auto-aim, the aesthetic, the sound design, the level design, the game design, they all come together in one unique package. I mean, there's not a lot of bad things that I have to say about this game. Even the story, which is a little bit out there in its presentation, is out there in a good way. It caught my attention, and I wanted to see what this disembodied voice had to say next. No performance problems in the first 4 hours, at least within combat. There was one strange thing that happened in the main menu, where the game would sort of reflect a screen of itself within a small box on the screen. But I think that may be purposeful. It seems purposeful, and alt-tabbing in and out seems to fix it, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but it doesn't affect the actual gameplay. The only other real complaint I have is that I would like to see bindable keys for the keyboard in question. That's the only thing that I can really think of in terms of negatives for the game. It still has a good amount of options, even being able to change the sticks in which you fire on your 360 controller. The 3 difficulty settings feel unique and feel like a challenge at the hardest while being a little bit lenient for the easiest. Honestly guys, this is worth a purchase if you like shoot 'em ups, twin stick shooters, or anything of that sort, and it feels so unique that it's not just another game in the genre. If I haven't hinted it by now, this gets a strong recommendation for me in the end, and even if you don't like the genres in question, it may be worth a look at even from a game design standpoint. A lot of game designers could learn a lot from this game. Anyway, this is Dragnix signing out, but before I go, I want to wish my sister a happy birthday and hope she gets everything that she wants and doesn't torture me too much today. Alright, I'll see you all later. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you like this content, hit that like button and share the video with a friend. And if you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button. The last video I did is in the top left, and a related video to this is in the top right. My Twitter handle, Google+, and Facebook groups are in the description below, along with the Steam review that accompanies this review. And if you want to support the channel financially, there is a Patreon link on the screen. Thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.